Hi everyone. Okay, before I start what I'm going to say, I might offend some teachers or some education workers, so if I do say anything wrong, I apologise. What I'm saying is from my opinions and therefore the information I've gained over the years by speaking to other dyslexics and dyslexic parents and speaking to some teachers as well. Now, if I can ask the guys to flip the slide for me to how to get to my first slide.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. First of all, when you go to school, you're found to have, you're struggling, and a student believes or parents believe that a child is dyslexic, and you report it to the school, and the school will say, okay, yes, he or she's got some weaknesses, and therefore we put the child into the disability lessons for reading and writing. But these lessons are not specifically for dyslexics. These are general helping courses, because in that class there'll be other students with other problems which need help on. And the idea of these classes is to help improve reading and writing. Now, from your perspective as a parent, what is important is you need the school to take action on your child being dyslexic. Now, you need two things. One, you need a test. Second of all, you need an assessment. Now, I'm going to go in a bit more detail in a few minutes about what they are, but basically what the test and the assessment does is tells the school that your child has learning issues and what support they need. This is a legal agreement what the school should be able to do to help your child. Okay, it looks at the weaknesses and what support your child needs. So the problem is schools don't like giving dyslexic students assessments because this costs them money. And in Britain, in the UK, schools have very limited resources on funding to test dyslexics. It's a big pot of money or a small pot of money, and basically they'd rather give assessments out for students who have disabilities such as walking and movement, because these are disabilities which the school needs to recognise with the Disability Act. Now, if you need to speak to the school and just say to them, to be absolutely honest, can you please give my child an assessment or dyslexia test, okay? And ask them a simple question. Is it possible? The schools can't say yes or no to that, but just say, look, what are the odds? Otherwise, I would recommend in the first place, if a teacher is going to push you about and just say in a month's time or 2 months you can't do it, it's time wasted for helping with dyslexic. So I actually recommend going private a lot of the time. It costs £350 in the UK. I know it's expensive, but it's money worth spending. Now, I'm going to go to move on. I'm going to go and say what a dyslexia test is. Now, dyslexia test is a very simple thing. Is your child dyslexic? Do they have the characteristics and qualities of the dyslexic? And this is important because it allows tutors to understand not what support your child needs, but basically what their weaknesses are in and their style of learning. Okay. Now, what is important after the test of having a test from a school or a private institution is you need an assessment. The assessment is very, very important. This basically tells the school what support your child needs, and it gives the school access to funding. Access to funding is what your child needs from the school, because this basically says to the school what support they can give. Now, the assessment normally costs £350. The test can cost, I think, between 150 to 250.
Stephen, can I just jump in there? Am I right in thinking that a test is unofficial and it's just an indication, whereas an assessment is an official document which schools have to act on? Is that right?
Okay. If you get the test done at the same time as the assessment, and the assessment and test is done by an educational psychologist, they'll both be official. At the same time, if you go to the Dyslexia Association or Dyslexia Action, again, the test has to be done legally by an educational psychologist, so therefore, yes, it will be a legal binding. If you go online and you order a test online, I might be wrong, but these tests normally are not backed by the education authorities in the UK. If you want to back up have a test done online, you can, and it is worthwhile going to the school and saying, look, I've had this test done online, but it says my child is dyslexic and my child therefore needs an assessment and a proper dyslexia test. But again, on average, it is so difficult to get an assessment or test out of the schools because of limited funding. They often let it go round in hoops for months on end. It's best to go private. In the UK, you can get this done by Dyslexia Action and Dyslexia Association. Again, sometimes they have funding to do it free. Other times, most of the time, you have to pay though. Now, the assessment is important because it takes about 2.5 hours to the assessment. But basically, it will go through every learning style that a student needs to use in school. Basically listening, speaking, reading and writing, the four. And what the assessment is to do is to look at what your child's weakness is. For example, your dyslexic reading age might be 7 or 11, and therefore if they've got low reading age, the support needs to be brought in is to help the child increase their reading ability. What support needs to be done? That means they need tutoring. What support? They need specific dyslexia tutoring. And the assessment will give a guideline to the school on what support to give and the funding. There's funding of about £4,000 to £5,000, I believe, to the school. It also means your child can get equipment, i.e. do they need a laptop to help them in class? Now, I know it's different in other areas of the world. I know, for example, some states in the US don't even believe dyslexia exists. If that happens, the next slide, I believe, will help you on how you should go about helping a child with dyslexia. Now, I'm a big believer, I know the guys here at the Tutor Crowd are big believers in tutoring. The Tutor Crowd .com is a resource online where you can pay to have tutoring for, as you guys know, with Patrick, tutoring different lessons and also specifically to have dyslexia tutors. Now, tutoring is important. Tutoring will help your child in a number of issues. One, helping your child increase their reading age. A lot of dyslexics do have low reading ages, and for example, I had my dyslexia tests done when I was 13, 14. I had my tutoring started when I was about 14. Now, my tutoring lasted about 1.5 years, an hour a week, at about £30 at today's money per hour. Now, when I started my tutoring, my reading age I think was about 7 or 8. When I finished my tutoring, my reading was about 11 or 12. Now, by increasing reading age, and this is what Dyslexia Tutor will very much help to do over the times, the better you can read, the more information you can pick up, and the more information you can pick up, the better your exam results, in theory. And it means the student will know more and understand more in class. Now, a dyslexia tutor, you can either have private, which is one-to-one, or in today's economy, a lot of tutors are doing teaching 2 children in the hour, which gives the same amount of study time and quality. I understand the guys with Tutor Crowd here, it's about £25 to £30. Sorry guys, I'm not too sure directly.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of ranges on the tutor. It's usually about £29 an hour.
£29 an hour. I highly recommend having a tutor. You could either go to the Dyslexia Association or Dyslexia Action in the UK. The US, they do have dyslexia associations, I believe, in the different states and worldwide. If you want to find a private tutor, I would recommend maybe speaking to other dyslexia parents in your school and ask who they use. That's how my parents found a good tutor. Now, schools. Some schools do offer specific tutoring for dyslexics. Now, grammar schools normally do, but most dyslexics don't get to grammar school or with private schools. Now, ask your school if they do have tutoring. They might not. If they do, it's normally again private. They normally bring a private tutor in. Now, I would recommend getting a group of a tutor together with a number of students and maybe have group sessions as well. It cuts the costs, but very much worthwhile. Now, with tutoring, I definitely recommend the sooner you get your child into tutoring, the better. If I go back to having tests and assessments, a test and assessment, if you go by a school, might take a number of months. If you find that if you're dyslexic, might have dyslexia, sorry, your child dyslexic in, say, September, and you don't have a test done until December, that means 3 months of a child not having the specific abilities or techniques to learning for their normal study skills. If you, for example, have a tutor in September, it means they're learning the skills throughout the 9 months of their studying, or 10 months until up to their exams. So the quicker you bring in a tutor, the better your child's abilities will be when it comes to the exams. The reading will be increased.
Can I just jump in there, Stephen?
Yeah.
Patrick, obviously you are a dyslexia tutor, and just to kind of confirm, what sort of changes have you been able to achieve for children that have struggled at school for years and years?
We've achieved big changes for students who are going from E grade to A grade. To add on to what Stephen was saying, it's tuition, but it's also the right type of tuition. It needs to be planned. There needs to be, I've also had a lot of conversations with parents and where tuition has been ineffective. Not ineffective, but it hasn't. What you need is a launch pad. A dyslexic needs a launch pad and a very specific way of working, whereby they're practicing written work before the tuition. The tutor is taking them through written work. Sometimes tuition can be less effective unless it is structured. And that's one of the things I would just add to what Stephen's saying. It must be in a structured way.
Okay, great.